I wish I could tell my younger self, you have permission to be happy. Don't wait on external validation to begin doing what you're passionate about. Chapter 2: Childhood and Character. Toy Chiquito. After creating a piece inspired by traditional art, I pay homage to toys and video games, and the fictional characters from TV and movies that inspired me to create in the first place. I became interested in creating my own characters and narratives, and with time, this enjoyment for drawing characters evolved into an interest in portraiture. In Toy Chiquito, I recall my childhood by painting myself as a toy, like the ones I would play with growing up. It has always been interesting to me how, when we are younger, we are able to project ourselves and play to become whatever we want, only limited by our imagination. Toy Chiquito means I'm small in Spanish. Toy also refers to toy doll, making the title of the portrait a play with words. The concept of toys as complex characters is borrowed from an animated movie I would watch in my childhood, with the characters included in the painting having similar features that pay homage to the characters from the film. This painting shares some formal and content elements with the first one. For example, the use of green and brown for a great part of the setting, the figures that appear seated, and the angel ornament adds a religious context. The mirrors appear as a symbol of reflection and self-perception. In one of the mirrors appears a TV with the intro of a show I watched growing up that dealt with contemporary issues with a religious undertone. This painting is important in the project because it questions what a portrait is and what it can be. I've always been a quiet boy with loud dreams. Chapter 2: Childhood and Character. Careful what you wish for. For this portrait, I chose to turn myself into a video game character. I decided to make this painting inspired by my favorite video game as a child, that played with the concept of entering a new world through a painting, which is metaphorically what I try to do as a painter. This is the first time the main character of the painting appears alone and moving. The title, Careful What You Wish For, that appears on the sign, alludes to the desire to grow and become independent, and all the implications that come with that. The concept of paintings within a painting allude to the different layers of meaning to unpack in each of the pieces. One of the paintings shows the surface of the sea, while the other shows the depths of it. The setting, as with the previous painting, is an interior space, to reference that I spent most of my childhood indoors at home. The checkered floor that appears in the painting also appears in the reference video game, and it reminds me of a comforter in my parents' room from years ago. This also became a reference to the game of chess, in which every move is important and will have repercussions in whatever is to come. There is a door with a lock, which the character has already passed by. The character carries a key card in the overalls pocket that would be useless to open said door. This represents understanding our limitations and choosing our own path. The 8 by the heart is there because I was born on the 8th day of the 8th month, and the 22 by the coin is for my 22 years of life. Going from Toy Chiquito to Careful What You Wish For, there is a narrative of conflict from the implications of growing up and becoming more autonomous. Along the way in life, you learn it's not about being happy, but rather about being aware of your happiness. In the end, it's just about being aware. For this painting, I collected photos of toys and memorable moments from my childhood. I began by sketching what I would look like as a toy and selected a photo for reference. I did the final sketch in pencil to later color and finish it digitally. Once my portrait was finished, I moved on to work on the other toy-inspired characters. 2 of these toys were inspired directly by real toys I have, while the female toy I designed myself. After a few tries, I arrived at this design. Once I had all the characters finished, I began working on the background. I placed the toys on a wood surface, like the one from a piece of furniture I used to have in my childhood room, where I lined up my toys for display. For wall color, frames, and ornaments, I use my great-grandparents' home as a reference. I associate this house with my childhood, because during this stage of my life, my family and I would move houses often. but my great-grandparents' house would stay the same. Once I had all the elements, I digitally constructed the image. Working with a grid, I transferred the drawing to the canvas, worked on a toned underpainting, and added a base of color with acrylic paint. I then did the final layers in oil. In this painting, I took some stylistic choices for varying degrees of realism, including outlines with different thicknesses and exaggerating some of the textures and materials. To design the character, I looked at old photos and made sketches in different styles. I included a hat with a fake bird that I own as part of the outfit. I also included a fish in one of the paintings that is inspired by a stuffed animal I have. Once I had the drawing of the final version of the character design, I colored and finished it digitally. For the setting, I sketched all the elements in pencil and followed the same process of making adjustments and adding the color digitally. I tried different arrangements, with the wall in the background being a different color and the character facing the opposite direction. Once I had the image set, I used a grid to transfer the drawing to the canvas, did a toned underpainting, and added a base of color in acrylic paint. Then I did the final layers in oil. The style of the painting stands out from the rest by defying the proportions expected in realism to feel more like a game.
Hi, I'm Kevin, and you're watching 22 The Unmasking.
Paper doll. Turning myself into a paper doll is a deliberate act of turning myself into a product. This digital illustration is made to be printed on paper and be functional. Paper doll is a transition between Chapter 2, which is based on play and toys, and Chapter 3, which makes emphasis on what we wear.